Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to wherever you're watching from. My name is Jake Sussman, and for those of you who don't know, I'm a dyslexia and ADHD entrepreneur and change maker and founder of Superpower Consulting, a global mentorship firm that's dedicated to helping the next generation of neurodiverse learners find their superpowers. Now, since quarantine started, I have been interviewing many different people, from parents to industry leaders to doctors to business leaders, and also people like you and I. Now, we all have at least one thing in common. And what's that? We're all neurodiverse. We've all at some point struggled in school and have overcome our challenges. Now, the coolest thing about our community is we are like a family. So I encourage you to please share where you're watching from, because we have a massive community of all over the world. So if you can please just share and post where you're watching from. Don't worry, we're all going to get vulnerable. We're all going to be talking about our stories. So don't hesitate, because guarantee there's someone else out there that has a story that you're currently going through. Now, I have a very special guest. Harvey Hubbell is a dear friend of mine and mentor of myself. Harvey is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and social entrepreneur with dyslexia, whose lean, forward-thinking approach to creating educational and socially conscious media is defined by seeing the world through a different lens. Now, for almost 3 decades, Harvey's media company, Captured Time Productions, currently Seedling TV, has created feature-length documentaries and short film projects that have captured almost 60 festival awards, including 4 Emmys. Now, today, Harvey is working on something pretty incredible. It's called Hopeville. And I'm going to let Harvey do the job of explaining Hopeville, but he is on a mission of changing the conversation around literacy. Harvey Hubbell, welcome.
Jake, I knew you before you had that fancy countdown.
The fancy countdown was big.
It's big. It's big. I think we got to get you a fern, though, for your background. You need a fern or something.
I know. We're working on it. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on, Jake. So we're making a film about the reading wars. It's been a film that we've been working on a lot of different bits and pieces of it for a long time. And it's been a lot of different films almost kind of coming together called Hopeville. And so I'm working with a lot of the old crew that worked on Dyslexia, the movie, which is 10 years old now. And we realized what we really want to do is make like Godfather 2, right? There has to be another film that what have we learned from dyslexia, and so that's where we ended up smack dab in the middle of the reading wars. And we looked at structured literacy, we looked at balanced literacy, whole word, and we're wondering why there's such a failure rate of readers in our school systems in our country. Why are our prisons filled with people who can't read?
Now, what inspired you to go down this mission of literacy?
Well, I guess it's because, as a child, I almost didn't learn how to read. I speak English and I speak it poorly. I speak one language. So I'm dyslexic, but I can read. I learned to read outside the school system, and it changed my life, obviously. But there, by the grace of God, go I. I mean, almost didn't happen. And I love books. So as I started making, I was a filmmaker. I did commercials. I did independents. I did some majors. I did a couple different things. Obviously, we did TV. That's where we got an Emmy. But when I started just seeing that all these kids who were painfully misunderstood, and there were so many of them, and then it was almost like there's this big secret going on the failure of the school systems. And as you said it, in the community, as people know each other, everybody wants to help and share and get the information out there. And there really is a thing called the reading wars. So, when I first started hearing about it, it's almost too big to kind of understand. So it takes a while to wrap your head around these things. I think that's what we did is I asked my good friend Margie Gillis from Literacy How, and she's a Haskins associate down at Yale. And I said, I want to know how people learn to read from, kindergarten, first grade. All of a sudden you begin to decode. So if I came over to your house right now and I dropped a rock on your foot, you're not going to like looking around for a pen and you're going to say, ow. You're not going to do that. You're going to say, ow, because that's a language. That's a natural thing. So 5,000 years ago, maybe give or take 1,000 years, because society got a little bit more complicated than just hunting and gathering, we need to have receipts. We needed to say how many pigs we have, how many sheep we have. And once we begin to start doing that, you need to keep things in order. And that's how writing started. And they say it happened in some area, but it probably happened all over the world around the same time as people got complicated and needed it. So Margie says you got to go to Waterbury, Connecticut. They're doing it right. Now, Waterbury, Jake, as you know.
Tell me about Waterbury.
I love Waterbury. It's 110,000 people, maybe 108,000 people now. They speak between 40 and 60 languages. So you have a town that's been an immigrant town for a really long time. Excuse the Frenchies.
Kids will be kids, right?
Kids will be kids.
Always.
Oop.
Harvey, you and I do that sometimes.
Yeah, we do. Well, maybe not that. All right. So the bottom line is we went to Waterbury to see how kids learn to read, because they said they're doing it right. It's one thing when you go to a fancy school, Jake, and your parents can afford to send you, or the town and the parents had a fight, and the town gave enough money for these kids to be sent to a fancy school. But in Waterbury, all across Waterbury, excuse me for a second. Come on, guys, jump off, go someplace else.
Who else? Okay, if you love Harvey's dogs, please post a comment and let us know, because I think they're the most adorable things ever.
Yeah, that's just some of them here right now. But anyway, so we spent a year in the classrooms in Waterbury, Connecticut. So through the lens of Waterbury, Connecticut, for 1 year in the classroom, we watched and saw how structured literacy, evidence-based reading works. And, we were there for a year. It's really interesting stuff. These are kids that have a lot of strikes against them. There's poverty, there's second language going on in the homes. What that means is you're learning one thing in school, but at home they're writing a whole different language. That's not easy.
Right.
So that poverty, there's of course 20% of the population could be dyslexic. About 20% on or off, but there's all kinds of reasons. Poverty, not having a proper diet, not sleeping well, all kinds of reasons why learning doesn't work as well as it could.
Well, Harvey, I think what you're saying is very interesting. And I am curious about our community, see what you think on this. Now, what you're saying, though, is that, when it comes to literacy, if you have the financial means to get access to resources, you have leverage, you have a shot. But for those that may not be able to get that kind of access, we're talking about, our public school systems are playing such an important role in teaching children of all types literacy, right? How to read. And what you're saying, though, is that through the means of what you're creating with Hopeville, you can actually achieve creating more awareness around that type of importance. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. Well, you're right on. And there's so another person in our office, Amy, was talking when we're, John Corcoran's making a film on literacy. A couple other people are doing.
Who's John? Who is that?
John Corcoran is the teacher who could not read. You should have him on your show. Good friend of mine too. And he he became he never learned how to read. I'm just thinking, like, this is our opportunity. I could close the door. Hold on for 1 second.
Take the door. You know, parents, I will say isn't this not such a classic parent moment where you're trying to focus on something and all of a sudden, whether it's your kids or your dogs, they're always for some reason in that exact moment when you're trying to do something important, there's always that disruption. Oh my gosh. Let me know. I actually happens all the time when I'm talking to kids, in our mentoring program. For some reason, their cats seem to always walk in front of the camera. I mean, it's the funniest thing. I don't know how cats know, right, Harvey? Cats like to walk in front of a camera all the time. I don't get it. I don't get it. Happens. Anyway, continue.
We're talking about John. So John's making a film. A couple other people making a film. The thing is, it's a movement. It's a time for awareness that people need to know. So anybody who came from the dyslexic background world and they've been on their own journey, by that I mean the parents or the educators, the researchers, they know that they know the numbers. Maybe we got 30% of our population is reading at grade level, maybe 40%. But if we had a factory and we had 6 out of every 10 widgets coming off the assembly line not working well, we would be, they would fix the factory. So in our education system, that's what we have going on now. Now there's the reading wars are people don't believe in evidence-based instruction or science. And so by spending a year in the classroom in Waterbury, Connecticut, through the lens of the Waterbury school system, you can begin to see the teachers working together, them testing the kids to make sure they know where the kids are. So they're working uniquely to that child. And that's happening in the public school system. You see, that's the beauty of Hopeville. And, who's the audience is decision makers, policy makers, Board of Education, school superintendents, principals, teachers that think like maybe I should really get this kind of training. Parents that we were just talking the other day. Is there a shelf life on getting your kid through school? Yeah. Is there a shelf life in being a parent? Yeah. And you can't be in 3rd grade. You can't be four grades behind. You can in 6th grade or 7th grade.
I was 3 grades behind at 6th grade, and forced to read out loud in class in front of all my peers. How do you expect a child who's so insecure about reading to be so open to then reading in front of the whole class? It's not possible.
That's because. But like with police officers, I mean, any nation's greatest resource is their youth, and it's probably the highest calling. People who go into to be the educators for our society. These people are rock stars. These people, you see athletes and professional athletes and CEOs of companies getting paid astronomical money. I mean, and they're doing great stuff. Well, the people who are raising our society and helping and building our foundation, same thing. But if they haven't been trained, and you look at things on police officers, very important people in our society. People say defund the police. Well, it's actually more you invest a little bit more in them, and you let them learn techniques of how to defuse a situation. So if I'm a young, in my 20s, reading teacher, and I've never met anybody like Jake Sussman or Harvey Hubbell who can't read, and we just talked about this, and everybody else can read. These kids here are at least holding their own. Some people are, everybody's sweating it out in the reading circle, thinking like, okay, you're going to read this part, you're going to read this part, I'm going to read this part, I'm going to do something, and then something happens where they read extra over,
right?
And the part you've been rehearsing doesn't happen. So you have all this sweaty hands, all this nervous stuff. It seems to me that if a teacher looks over at that kid, it's like, okay, I know, Harvey's having problems, Jake's having problems. Let's work with this kid. Let's take him to a reading facilitator, a reading specialist, and just get down to the problem. Oh, Jake doesn't know this, or Harvey doesn't know this, and we're going to work on these things 3 times a week until you have them, and then we're going to notice improvement, and we're going to, and then in that, your self-esteem will probably go up. I mean, the teachers that are properly trained with the science of literacy can see improvement in X amount of hours going up to grade levels being, it's talking like 60 hours of serious stuff going on, but you can give this child a foundation that they did not have, and you give them self-esteem.
Right. And that's the name of the game, because with self-esteem comes confidence, right? It comes an understanding of who you are, how to tackle challenges, more of an ability to want to tackle challenges. I mean, we see kids all the time that are afraid of the uncomfortable part. They're afraid of that challenge because of how much failure that they've experienced, how much pain that they've experienced so far in the classroom.
Well,
now
another thing, I just want to say something, because you said another thing it does for the kid, the book that the quote that if you never learn to read, you only live one life. If you've learned to read, you live 10,000 lives. So you learn through so many other examples and other stories that you have a richer life when you can read. Matter of fact, it's in your medicine bottle. You know how to follow instructions. You know how to do all kinds of things.
Now, our audience are they're saying some really interesting things. Cynthia just said something, how there was also an issue that, here, I'm going to bring it up on screen here. I love this thing. This is great. She said that there's also an issue that publishers and reading curriculums are usually bought under long-term contracts. So if it doesn't work, the teachers and administrators have no options to buy something different.
Hey, I have a question. No, that's 100% right on. And so what do we do about that? I mean, off the top of your head, ask your what are they, listeners or writers, or who are they?
You can ask them yourself. They're listening to you too. I
mean, I think, first of all, I think, I'm an old-fashioned kind of activist. I say, you bring a film like this to your hometown, you get a great discussion about a question exactly like that, and we put a panel up, and it's not a war between the parents and the teachers, and we're all here trying to get the kids to learn how to read. So we talk to the school superintendents, we talk to the Board of Education, put them up in a panel discussion, and just present these things to them. I mean, they've been sold a bill of goods too. They might not have all the information. The thing is, by us getting the information out there, by us presenting it to all kinds of people, it's out there. It's a movement.
Can you do me a favor, and for our audience, can you define what reading wars mean? Like, what are the reading wars? Is that between just like in a simple term? Like, is that between school? Is it schools versus parent student? Is it school versus school? Like, what does that mean when you say reading wars?
Well, I think it's more complicated. I think it's curriculum versus curriculum.
Ooh.
So it's you can name a couple of the publishing companies that there's studies done. It's harmful for the kids not to be, if you know how to break down the structured language, then teach your kids how to do it. I mean, all the stuff I never learned 50 years ago when I was in school, but they can maybe fix that now. Well,
right.
They're kind of dragging their feet on fixing it. So we have to point out for the reasons why. And and maybe these textbook companies, aren't our friends.
Right. Now, you just brought something that actually the next part of this conversation I want to go into is that, Harvey, you've dedicated your life to literacy, to driving the conversation through film around literacy and dyslexia and giving kids a voice, right? That's your life. This is your life's work. But growing up, it wasn't so easy. I mean, you were right in the trenches with a lot of these kids right now and today. Can you share with our audience what was it like for you growing up? And at what point did you realize that you could do this?
Well, I think that life is like I don't know nothing. This is like a line I'm working on. I don't know nothing about playing no cards, or poker, but I don't know nothing about the game poker. But I think you're dealt hands, and everybody's dealt a certain hand, and whatever the hand is, that's what you got to play. And so when I was a kid, the teachers, it almost seemed like because it was so close after the Second World War, and the Second World War, it seemed like mass production won the Second World War. We could make more tanks and jeeps and airplanes. So why couldn't we just manufacture people out of these schools? Just teach them all the same way. Well, what we found out afterwards, and I'm going to answer your question, is with the fMRI and studying how the brain works, we really are all wired differently, and that's a beautiful thing in our species. So if we embrace that we're all wired differently, we don't start at the same place. So our reading, if our teachers haven't been instructed to how to deal with each of these kids, see, the kindergarten teacher, if they're not instructed, you're going to go to first grade not prepared to graduate with everything you need to know about letters and sounds. And so then it becomes a train wreck. So by the time you get to first grade, and if they move you through, in cases of small towns like a town I grew up in, teachers would say, "Hey, I know your sisters, and how come you're not like your sisters?" Oh, well, they're girls, and I'm not them. So you become like a class clown, by stating the obvious, and then you become a troublemaker, and try to be a troublemaker. But meanwhile, there's in the education field, there's good folk out there that'll help you and point you to the way. We've met many oodles and doodles of them, and by the time I was a rebellious teen, I was an angry, painfully misunderstood person I had a second grade reading average in high school. Not cool. So, there's ways that you lash out and you act out. So, there by the grace of God go I got a couple good books. People gave me music and love, and I turned into a good guy. As a joke, Jake.
I'm getting that.
Yeah.
As you're sharing that, Harv, I can't help but think about myself. I know that there's kids of our parents, the parents watching this, but their kids also going from the class clown, the troublemaker, getting thrown out of school. But what was happening, though, is your behavior was showing on the surface of this behavioral problem, but what was really going on underneath the surface? And I think that's something, as we start to talk to our schools, changing curriculums, like you had so much potential as a kid, but because we are obsessed with looking at the surface, that's all we saw was the behavioral problem, not the fact that you're actually being missed with reading. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, Jake, I met you when you were in high school when I met you.
I know. Oh my gosh.
And so we're these little tiny seeds, and we grow into these things, So, if you're a carrot, seed, you're not going to become a tomato, kid. If you're a tomato, you can, but be the best tomato you can possibly be, right? So you want to give it sun and care and soil, and you want to give it all the elements that it needs. And if we understand that, I mean, it's that basic. It's, hey, I can, I'm going to take care of this plant. I'm going to give it water. I'm going to give it sunlight, good soil. I'm going to take care of it. So you take a look at our kids. I mean, I think maybe the parents are working pretty hard. They got stuff going on.
Parents are working so hard.
Then they get on the school bus and like, get out of here. Somebody else is going to teach you how to read. In reality, no matter how hard the parents work, at nighttime, when they come home, making sure that the kids are working on their homework, going up to bed and reading with them, watching the kid to see how the kid reads. I mean, it's a real deal to raise a young person, and this person is going to do what in society? Well, we want them to be happy. We want them to have a pursuit of happiness. So we want them to reach their fulfillment. So if their self-esteem is in the toilet because they feel stupid because they don't like reading in front of the classroom, I mean, this has to be addressed, and this is what we hope that a film like this is a conversation starter. It keeps people going, and we break down. When we did the movie Dyslexia, I was born dyslexic. I'm planning on retiring dyslexic. Doesn't mean I know much about what dyslexia is.
Right.
And most of our educators didn't either. I mean,
you started a conversation around that. You started a national conversation around that movie.
It was good, and people were able to laugh and have a good time. So a lot of the same filmmakers that we worked on that film with 10 years ago, we're back, and we're making Hopeville, and I mean, because there was a lot of stuff that, like, what does the audience need to know now, and educators and school superintendents and policymakers. I mean, all of these people just getting into the room and saying, okay, maybe the textbook is not good. How do we get out of this? How do we bring our reading levels up? Because that's evidence-based. You're going to see the statistics on the kids. There's a miracle in the frickin' kids. I mean, you and I know we've seen enough of these stories. We've been to enough of these schools where the kid was failing at another school, but he comes to a school, and as I said before, maybe it's a wealthy school that the teachers have been trained at, but it makes a difference in the kid's life. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are adults now, even, who have talked about how this changes their life, because they were told, oh, you can't read, you can't do this, and you can't do that. And it happens in first grade or kindergarten where the teacher says, oh, you're just being lazy. And then the substitute teacher shows up and doesn't know nothing, but then the kids volunteer. They're going to help. They say, oh, he's just lazy. And so now you've just been branded, and you have a first grade teacher just branded you. She didn't know what she was doing. She didn't. He or she didn't mean to or understand. But this is the conversation that'll happen, and we know. Let's say you are that first grade teacher and you haven't been properly trained. Well, you have to kind of understand. They can say, well, I think my training is great. Well, good. We just lose the majority of kids. We don't need to lose the majority of kids. And you could say that these kids were bad apples, bad seed. They're going to go to prison anyhow. Maybe not. Maybe they could be contributing members of society and make a big bloody difference.
Wow.
Just saying.
Something that, wow. You're not just saying, I mean, we're speaking truth, baby. This is truth. This is where it begins. I mean,
Jake.
When are we going to wake up and say enough is enough? And Harvey, that's what you're doing. You're starting a national conversation, again, a rebranded conversation, because Dyslexia, the movie, which if you haven't seen it, you have to go watch. All right. There we go. We're new and approved. Hopeville is like this symbol of neurodiverse innovation and how we can reach the neurodiverse mind, which, by the way, the word neurodiverse didn't even exist 10 years ago, right? I mean,
well, it's coming to a town near you. I mean, the whole idea now is that you can train your teachers. You can, it doesn't have to be some she thing. It can happen in a public school system. It can happen in a town like Waterbury. Waterbury, you know, a wonderful town. I love the town. Great. It's a great food town. A lot of great restaurants in there. A lot of great people. And, you know, but they have their problems. They have all kinds of stuff going on. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of stuff. The bottom line is, if it can happen there, if it can take hold there, then it can happen in Newark. It can happen in Boise.
Let me tell you something about Waterbury also. You know about Waterbury's reputation in Connecticut, right? It's known as the lost city of Connecticut, or the forgotten city of Connecticut, right? Because it's just, you know, it had so much potential back in the day, but now it's really struggling. And the irony around Hopeville, this, you know, how the Waterbury schools here are doing something so innovative that has the potential to act as role models around the country, right? This is like the child in the classroom that's being misunderstood, right? That is underestimated by schools or by adults because they are different. They learn differently. That's Waterbury, Connecticut, right? That's Waterbury, Connecticut. Waterbury isn't Hartford or New York City. It's just a little city in Connecticut, but has so much potential to act as a role model for other cities around the country.
We read someplace, it's the second worst place to go in Connecticut. Hey, I don't care. Believe what you want. It's like you still got great restaurants and great people there, and that's one of the things written on it. So I got to tell you that the mayor comes from a family of public servants, cops, and educators. So Neil O'Leary, you know, really took a chance to make a difference on the education part of it, and I think if you can get, you know, it's like the perfect lineup. The thing about that town is it's the community, and they work well together. All the people that are in the town, you know, I believe. I mean, there's always going to be rifts and problems, but the mayor, the superintendent, the board of education, they're pretty much all going in the same direction with the educators, and that makes a difference.
Right. I mean, what I would love to see is, you know, the mayor of New York is dyslexic. Oh
yeah. Well, but he also said there's I mean, there's so much we can do on this thing, this stuff. And him and his buddy, the chancellor, they're getting rid of whole language in New York City. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember seeing that quoted not too long ago.
So here's what I think: if you are in government, or if you know someone in government, right, whether it's local, state, national, it's time that we have the conversation today. Because here's the deal. When it comes to reading, and Harvey, feel free to chime in on this.
No, yesterday was the time to have that conversation. Yesterday was the time, because we just failed another kid today. You know? Or maybe 3 days ago was like not a bad day to have it, because we failed more kids.
Yes.
Keep going, Jake.
Oh my gosh, I have the chills right now. It's so true though, Harv. You know, like, it's time. It's just time. Enough's enough. When are we going to actually? It happens from a grassroots level. It happens from a grassroots level, and we got to show this to Congress. Hopeville is going to be seen everywhere.
Yeah, well, you know, I just want to say that there's a district in Waterbury, Connecticut called Hopeville. There's a school district, and the name is a great name, so that's why we call it Hopeville, and that's why we keep talking about Waterbury, just to clarify that. Hey, so you're talking about grassroots. And in the beginning, you were talking about stories and telling the stories. I don't know if our production office asked you, but I mean, stories are, you know, sharing is caring. And if we could ask your people to, you know, write their stories of what's going on in education with their family, with their kids, with themselves, with their children, with somebody that they know or love. I mean, I would love it if we could share that. And since you have some people listening here today, and we do a reach out, I don't know if Jillian or Kat give you any information on that, but we can always like send people if they write to you or something, they can send them to our people. And then we put them up there, and it is a conversation. You know what happened? I just got to tell you about, back with dyslexia 10 years ago. One of the things we were talking about, that was before Decoding Dyslexia blasted off onto the scenes, right around the same time. But we were in the space watching that form. The thing is, you go to the gas station, you go to the supermarket, you talk about what's going on with your kid and what's going on with the education part of it. It's not swept under the rug. So you begin to say, hey, the reading scores in our town are this, and they could be that. And so you look at these kids. I mean, when you're talking about what happens in my life and the juvenile delinquents we become at a certain age, you look at these inner city environments where there's a lot of potential.
So much
to go potentially both ways really fast. Better libraries, better museums, better better access to guns and violence.
Harvey, I see the literacy crisis in our country as a national security crisis. This is a matter of national security. Right?
Yeah, it's a civil rights movement of our time. It is a civil rights issue of our time. It's a national security issue. I think it's 100%.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No. I mean, we know where we're going, and
we're about to go on another rant. That's where we're about to go. Well, no, I'll tell you that it's not only a matter of national security, but people don't think about school. It's like, when was the last? I have yet to see a yellow public school bus with air conditioning. We don't think about school. How come public transit in New York City is so nice, except for the subways, but is so nice, versus the public school buses is terrible? Do they even have seatbelts? I don't even know. We don't think about school. Why? Because kids don't vote, right? We don't really vote. Our parents do. And by that point, when we're voting, we're done with school. We don't want to do it. We don't want to think about it. But the thing is, when we have a generation that is functionally illiterate, we're going to be vulnerable to propaganda. We're going to be vulnerable to other countries. We're going to be vulnerable. We are not going to be an educated society. And guess what? Our generation, someone in our generation is going to be president of the United States. Let's hope that they're functionally literate. You know what I'm saying? Let's hope that they can read. And as a millennial, as someone that represents the next generation, I'm concerned. I'm actually scared. I'm scared, which is why I started my company in the first place, helping kids find their confidence through mentorship, right? But we have work to do, and it's going to take not just the older generation, but it's going to take our generation and the generation earlier than that, the kids, to all be together and do this.
Yeah, it takes a village. I mean, that's a village. And we know that when if we go to conferences, you see all the different people at the conference, and there's so many people, and I think that's what in the reading wars. You make your decision of what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Are you doing the best that you possibly can? Because I want to go back to what we said. There's a lot. The great thing about dyslexia is they're minting brand new, freshly minted dyslexics every day. And so if you have an understanding of the gifts and the assets and the liabilities. And you kind of work on it. It's like if you know better, you do better, right? So nowadays it's the same thing. My kid has, I think, 188 days in public school from grade 1 before he or she finishes grade 1 with all the information that they need to know to move on to grade 2. So next summer they'll be able to pick up and work that whole entire way. So it's a freaking ticking time bomb. And I guess one of the reasons why I also wanted to make this film is because when you go to these conferences and you're hanging out with again, picture me in high school juvenile delinquent, painfully misunderstood, dysgraphic, dyscalculia, dyslexic. When I told the school system I wanted to be a writer, they laughed at me. That didn't really help that they laughed at me. But here I go, years later, hanging out with, I won an Emmy for writing though too, but that's just lines. You're just writing lines. But anyway, it's just writing lines. That's what happens from being a wise guy. Just being like the smart ass in the back. So it's just lines. It's just like we don't need to get lucky with a line, and it's not about all the lines that don't work. So
it's a great line though.
So the bottom line is, the bottom line is what's going on right now is if we don't recognize that we can make a difference, however and wherever we are. See, I saw these older educators. Like, who would have ever thought I'd be hanging out with the Diana Kings and the Arlene Sundays of the world, the Sunday systems, and the founder of Kildonan. And they say by the third month in third grade, they should be doing this. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys have a plan? You guys have a plan for? Of course, we have a plan of what the kid's supposed to be knowing and doing. And I found that fascinating, and so much that in Waterbury, every kid is learning. And that first day of school, they're all learning the same thing. We're going to give a quick little assessment. You're sitting at a table. You have a red crayon, a yellow crayon, and a black crayon, and you have a school bus. And the teacher asks you to, what color is the school bus? And teacher is like eyes looking at these 20 kids, and the kids are like, yellow. Some kids are like the ones that don't know, or they put up their hands later. Okay, they didn't know their colors, right? What color is yellow? Can you color in the lines? You can see the kids whose parents, especially when it comes to what color are the tires are black. So when you're doing the tires, if you take your crayon and you're just going like this over the tires, or if you're going like this around, that's going to help you when you're writing letters later on. Maybe parents have helped the first 3 or 4 years, or grandparents or somebody has been working with kids in coloring books. You see kids who just come in like, what am I doing? And they're watching. And so I think, and I'll wrap it up, that it's our job, it's our obligation to make sure that our kids are educated to the best possible way that they can be, for the reasons you said. We want a better country in the future than we have right now, and we're going to have complicated problems that we're going to need to understand. And there's going to be political differences, and there's going to be technical problems. There's going to be, all kinds of things. We just went through a pandemic, and you're trying to figure out facts from fantasy. You have to increase the mind of the humans. Just have to. Call me crazy. Am I rambling? I feel like I'm rambling.
No, I'm just listen. I mean, like, I don't know about all you listening to Harvey, but I just get lost in his words. I mean, not bad with lost, but actually you're just speaking such truth. It's so nice to know that there's someone out there that's not just speaking truth, but that's doing something about it. It's time that we start doing, whether you're going to make a documentary film, whether you're going to call your policymaker, whatever you're going to do, but it's time that we start doing. The more we start doing, just on a small level.
You have to, because TikTok, there's only 40 minutes in a day. There's only 40 minutes a day. There's only 365 days in a year. So your kid's going to have a birthday, and then they're going to be 8 years old or 9 years old. And so it's up to us every day to do you know what? I was on, this, when Diana King passed away, I was at her deathbed for a couple days. And so she's 90 something years old. And I said, Diana, think of all the people you have taught, all the teachers you taught, all the teachers you trained. Think of the teachers that they trained. I said, you trained Peter Wright, and he went on to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Think of all the kids that you trained. I'm like, Diana, you've made such a huge difference in your life. And she said, I'll never forget it. She said, I did the best I could do. I was like, whoa, that's it, man. Why don't we all do the best we can do? Like, like it's important. Like our name's going to be on it. It's going to be like something, do the best possible job we can do. And, cut people slack. We know that it's not easy to be a teacher. It's not easy to be a parent. It's not easy to be a kid. We got it. Everybody has to chill out, drink decaf coffee, maybe. I don't know. But, maybe, half calf. I don't know. Everybody
Kombucha. Come on.
Kombucha. Clearmont kombucha, baby.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Although there is a tea here. So Harvey, what's some advice, for our parents, our moms and our dads watching this right now, and maybe they've grabbed their kids because their kids want to be a filmmaker one day and you're a source of inspiration for them. What are some, again, I'll paint the picture. We have parents in our program, and a lot of them are watching this right now. And for those of you that don't know, I run a mentoring organization that connects kids with learning differences to their own mentor anywhere in the world. Okay. So we have a lot of parents where the path feels foggy. You have your 9-year-old or 7-year-old child who's in pain, who's struggling, who's crying in agony, who has just failed again yesterday, right? What's some advice that we can give our parents or sources of wisdom for our parents that they can feel like there is still hope for their kids? It's kind of a lofty question.
I got to tell you something about, parents today. I mean, they're a very educated lot. If they begin to know what's going on, there's this thing called the internet. All the kids are using it. I think some of the parents are using it too. And so you can begin to start looking up certain things and figuring out certain things. You can become pretty well educated, on the topics. That being said, you don't have any time to waste with your kids. You hear them saying the story like, "Oh, well, wait, it'll straighten itself out in 3rd grade." Well, yeah, maybe. But why don't we just keep working on it? And, why aren't we looking at the school? How are they doing? How's other kids in the class doing? How's my kid doing? I mean, I think it's important. That's the primary job of the school. I mean, I know that they teach you to keep your hands to yourself and walk in a straight line. I got that, and not pull people's, ponytail. I got that. But teaching you to read is kind of a big, important thing because there's stop signs, there's directions on a medicine bottle. There's the poison control thing. It's always good to read that sometimes, when you need to. If somebody is giving you instructions to do certain things or, reading is, how do they say, fundamental in our society. There's this thing called the U.S. Constitution. It's a good one to read sometimes.
What's that?
So, there's parables and holy stories. There's so much. You have a richer life. So the advice to the parents is, whatever, get the kids involved with learning, and because kids are just little machines, everybody has a gift. They have a wonderful gift of what they're good at. You and I have talked about this forever and a day, the superpower. And I think it's important for kids to know, they might be terrible in this, they might be terrible in that. They could be terrible in math. They could be terrible in, once you're terrible in reading, those math and science questions aren't going to come any easier to you in 7th grade or 8th grade. So, but if you can do workarounds and and just find your kid's talent of what your kid is great at, and that's what you're celebrating. But work on the deficit. Figure out why can't they read. 95% of the population can read. They can teach 95%, and we know the ones that can't read. I mean, I'm gonna, these are people that are seriously handicapped. It's not the people who are struggling who just might have a wiring difference. We're all wired completely differently. But what are the bloody gifts? And I think a family would have a lot more fun when when they know what their kids are great at.
Right. And that's something that, I mean, I know that there's a lot of organizations and resources out there for our families. There's your local or your state International Dyslexia Association IDA branch.
Mm-hmm.
Your local Decoding Dyslexia chapter. There's a lot of, we have Harvey's, movie. There's so much out there that will be able to help give your kids that type of guidance and support and the confidence that they need.
Well, that's what you just said, Jake. I mean, you're an advocate, and when you're a parent, you're an advocate. So, here's a new rule that you don't go to the hospital alone, right? You know that one, right? I don't think it's written anyplace, but if you're going to the hospital for some kind of procedure or something, take an advocate with you. Take a spare person who's going to be able to help you make certain decisions on what's going to go on. So there's these people called parents. I mean, it's a crazy world, and I'm not going to change the world. But you get a license to drive a car, but you don't have to have a license to have a kid. So what the heck? So when you marry somebody, whatever. We're going to kindergarten. We're going to first grade. Wow, this is what's going on in the kid's life. You're an advocate for that kid. You put a seatbelt on the kid. That's your job. You make sure that the kid is safe. You make sure that the kid doesn't fall over a cliff, for instance. You hold their hand if they're near a cliff. I'm just going to give a little parental advice here, like zoo. It's not good to dangle the kids over the animal cages. We've seen that doesn't work out well. So those are the things that we kind of know. Society says, don't do that. But what society also doesn't say is like, look, this might seem like uncharted territory. And in the world of dyslexia, and Hopeville is not just about dyslexia, it's about reading problems, which is big in this nation. So the thing is, it's your job as a parent, as the advocate, to learn as much as you possibly can on the subject. And because, again, the clock is ticking, you only have 188 days in school. And once the kid starts saying, "Oh, I forgot my pencil. I left my pencil. I left in my notebook at home, Mom, and I'm getting sick and I can't go to school." I mean, you're beginning to lose that kid. And if that's happening in kindergarten or first grade, it's more of a reflection on the school not being able to unlock the kid. And I think parents and teachers have to be respectful towards each other, and they have to. And I like it when people don't know the answer, and they're gonna. I mean, Henry Ford used to say that. I don't know the answer right now, but I'll get back to you in 24 hours. At least he was alleged to have said that.
Right, and I think too, and I want to reiterate this to our parents watching this, is that your kids are okay. They're okay. They're struggling a little bit right now, but they're okay, and they're going to be okay. We have to focus not just on their challenges, but on their strengths. We want to use their strengths as confidence to leverage confidence to then tackle challenges. It's so hard to just be in this circle of negativity and their challenges. Oh, like this is what's wrong. That's what's. We want to emphasize their strengths and use their outlets, find their outlets. I am obsessed with this, right? We're talking about our kids finding confidence. Well, you know what? And Harvey, this may be, this, I'm blanking out on the word. I'm blanking. That ever happened to you when you're trying to talk and all of a sudden you forget?
Use your words, Jake. Use your words.
Structured literacy and Orton Gillingham and all of this work that we want to do to help our kids how to read, to teach our kids how to read, can only go so far. But first, they have to be open to wanting to doing it. We have to get through that trigger of feeling like throwing up whenever you even hear that word read. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times that may come through looking at your kid's interest. Look, I taught myself how to read by reading model train books. You know, that was my own interest. We had a kid who we taught him how to read by reading Alicia Keys lyrics because that's what he loved, you know? So I think if we can remove ourselves from the book that we're given in the classroom and take a broader scope at looking at what our kids gravitate to and trying to find resources around those interests, we may be able to break through that barrier of even the word reading. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what we're saying is find your kids' superpowers, invest in your kids. You know, we're all humans. We all have our assets and liabilities, for lack of better things to say. Hold on. I think the dogs have deserved their time back in for a minute. Hold on.
And while Harvey Coase gets his dog back in, let me know what you all think. And if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I want to just share something that the International Dyslexia Association Oregon branch just quoted. This is awesome. Read this, Harv. This is a quote from Dr. Anita Archer. Don't just accommodate, liberate. We feel like your movies are encouraging us to be advocates to do just this. This is to you, Harvey. Teach everyone to learn to read because we know how.
That's right. We know how. I mean, the thing is, why aren't we doing it? The thing is, we know now, and we want to. Well, the big thing is, it's not just a film. You know, it's not just a film. We're gonna have an advocate toolkit at the end. We want to be able to connect people. I mean, there's a lot of ways of connecting people, but you know, it goes back to what you were saying before, Jake. There's like day one when they tell people that your kid is dyslexic. Or your kid hears it that they're dyslexic, and they're like, oh, and the parents are like, oh my goodness, like, what is it? They don't know anything. That's day one. After that, it's like, come on in, the water's fine, it's great, don't worry about it. You know, it's like, you know, and find your gift on that. So bottom line is, we know that there's reasons why people can't read, and we know that we can work on those reasons and help kids. Why aren't we doing it? So this is a conversation. So I mean, you mentioned the IDA, which are in most states, the Decoding Dyslexia, which is I think in most states or
almost
all
every
states.
state. Almost every state now.
Every state. So, and there's a lot of great organizations. We can name a whole bunch of them. We just want, if somebody sees our film, then they're going to want to do, their action thing. Well, let's get involved. Let's figure out, and we're all going to get involved in a different way. And as your caller just wrote in, I mean, this is a time to make a difference. Our job is to raise the awareness, teach that kid, find out each kid is, they're bloody gifts. They're these wonderful little tiny baby human beings that are going to grow up into all kinds of things. Don't we want to give them, music and love and books? Don't we want to give them the experience that they want? I mean, here's what we're talking about. The underserved population. The underserved population isn't being exposed to as many of these different things. Why not? Let's get them out there. Let's get everybody reading and to be able to, to have a smarter population, somebody who is going to be happier, healthier, wealthier, wiser. Call me crazy. What does this say?
Check this out. In Virginia, 70% of the kids in special ed are there for literacy issues. 1/3 of special ed students drop out. In 3 to 5 years, 1/3 of those who drop out will end up in prison. We need your film.
We hear you. We're coming. And the School to Prison Pipeline, you all know Amir Baraka. He talks a lot about that. As a total crash capitalist, our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated in prison, you know, they might be making license plates, but they're not paying taxes at that time. Also, I don't know what kind of jobs they, you know, will they get training for? They do whatever. You know, I think a lot of it is, and I did some stuff with some guys in prison, and they were doing theater class, and they were doing like Shakespeare in prison, which is kind of cool. And they're like, man, this is like how we escape, you know. And yeah, we are going to do a tour. We're doing. Oh, is that Diane Wilson?
Yeah.
Hey, Diane Wilson, that's cool. Yeah. Oh, we're doing a tour. Hey, wait a minute, hold on. We'll go back to that thing we were talking about. Jake and I were talking today. Jake, tell them about your idea that we had today. We were talking.
I want you to tell everybody.
Well, because so Jake is a train enthusiast. I'm a model train enthusiast. I'm a model train enthusiast. Jake's a real model train enthusiast. And so this year you took a train across the country, right? And you went across the Rocky Mountains, beautiful stuff, and shot some great footage. So we were talking, and he's like, I want to get a train, like a train car, like a private car. It's like, well, they're really.
So I found out that you can charter a private train car, like from like the early 1900s or mid 1900s, and they'll attach it on the back of an Amtrak train to go across country.
Yeah,
so Harvey and I were thinking, we were like, how cool would it be to do a tour of where we invite you all onto this train car and you all can hop on along the way. But the whole point of it is about raising awareness about neurodiversity and literacy. And we're going to do this tour in the back of an Amtrak.
This is the kind of thing that my producers here, they hate me for it. It's like, okay, well, but anyway, so yeah, but if you start in New York and you do like a big thing going on, and then we go to, I'm just making it up, you know, Buffalo, you know, Chicago, and just keep heading out there. And like, we could just, you know, and people hop on and off. We could have all these great scientists and educators getting on our train, and parents riding with us, and school superintendents and board of education. And yeah, we'll probably have some video cameras on it.
We got Russell, we got people are just commenting away, you know, like it's really, y'all have been amazing. Thank you again. I mean, this has just been such a blast. And if you do have questions for Harvey, please feel free to comment below. You know, Harvey, just like your kids went through what your kids are currently going through, and he's now capitalized on his own dyslexia and his own neurodiversity, the very thing that he was told that he would always struggle in. And he is now changing the conversation around literacy. I mean, Harvey, you are so inspiring. I just have to say, it's incredible.
Well, I love you, Jake. I think you're inspiring. Wanda, where do you live? I forgot. Oh, Susie,
by the way. Susie is awesome. Susie, we're going to invite Susie on our show soon. Susie runs one of the top dyslexic sleepaway camps. So if you would like to send your kids to sleepaway camp, check out Camp Spring Creek. Camp Spring Creek, baby. Oh, yeah.
Susie, is there still room open for, I mean, so that's the kind of thing, you know, when you have people talking about like overcoming dyslexia and all that stuff, there's a community out there when yeah, we're coming to New York. We don't know when we're coming to New York, but we're coming to New York. We'll probably be starting off in New York sometime. So be watching for us this year. We're trying to glue everything together as fast as we can. So I guess the thing is, that's what I'm saying. You're dealt a certain hand, but if you're that parent and you're like, I mean, it's like a football game. I don't play football. I don't play poker. You guys wonder, what does he do all day? You know, I don't play poker and I don't play football. But if you're in a football game and it's like the clock is ticking and you're like, okay, there's only a couple more weeks of school left and this isn't working for me, then you call up Camp Spring Creek and send your kid there. And it's like, I mean, you can ask Susie at Camp Spring Creek. Kids enjoy learning to read, writing letters home to their parents. They still get to do paintball and hang out in those, you know, those cable car things that go through the, you know, I don't know what it's called. What's that thing called, Susie? And there's pools and there's all kinds of fun stuff, great food, great hiking. I mean, you have to look at the hand you're dealt, and how am I going to get this kid up to a reading level? How am I going to find their superpower? How can I invest in their assets? What is the important thing? Because every kid is precious and has these wonderful gifts and goals and passions, and you just have to find that.
By the way, the IDA Oregon said that they'll host us when we arrive in Oregon.
I love Oregon, man. Yeah, we were there.
If you want to invite us to yours.
Oh, so yeah, so the big thing is if everybody can, Jake, did they give you the Hopeville documentary film page? Do you know that for people to
post it in? I'll post it right now. You tell me where to post and I'll do it.
I don't know where to post it. I'm dyslexic. Ask Jillian or Kat. They know.
All right, we'll post it.
Wanda, where are you? Where is here?
Oh, Lynn is near Chicago.
Chicago, that sounds great.
I'm telling you, Hopeville is going to become. You're hearing it here. When you launch? When does it come out?
When it's done. Hey, Ed Wilson's on a train right now. Speaking of all of the.
So if anyone has connections to Amtrak, we're going to make this thing happen. We're doing this, right, Harv? We're doing it.
Yeah.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it right here.
No, we did talk about it, but see, that's what happens. That's what happens. And so I guess the thing that we're also talking about, hey, anybody who wants us to
post it in the comments. Post it in the comments.
Perfect. And then we'll be contacting you as we're getting the momentum going. But it is important, and well, let's go back to what's happened on our watch, like decoding dyslexia, going and banging on the doors of the legislators all the time, and now they're even, Clarice is even running for office, and you look at these people, it's like, yeah, we can make a difference. The other thing about a decoding dyslexia is that they uniformly teach their kids to get up and advocate. So, and they let their kids meet scientists and meet master educators and meet cool filmmakers.
So Misty said, in Texas, our standardized tests are so unfair for those kids with dyslexia. In reality, adults can listen to text and comprehend just fine, yet kids are not given the opportunity.
You know what? It's funny because my science teacher just wrote that to me. My science teacher from high school knew that my handwriting is just atrocious. My handwriting is atrocious, I think, for a couple different reasons. Maybe I was born dysgraphic, don't know. Diana King said that because I used to be left-handed and they moved me to right-handed, not a neuroscientist and not an evil first grade teacher. She just didn't know any better. She wanted that uniformity thing going on. So let's just say that there was early intervention in the young Harvey in 1964. So if there was early intervention right then, that let's say that I met Diana King in 1964, and she would have just taught me and how to, do my little swirls and how to do lines, and then you put them together and you have really nice handwriting. And think of my self-esteem would have been completely different. So my first grade teachers, my second grade teachers would have been able to read what I wrote, perhaps, if I was early intervention. So by third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, there wouldn't have been a problem. There wouldn't have been a disciplinary problem. There wouldn't have been problems that other teachers have to deal with, and the teachers aren't trained for those. Oh, so I just want to go off and say that my science teacher noticed that I had the answers, but I couldn't write them down, or I didn't want to write them down. And he observed, because he's a science teacher, he remembered his friends when he was growing up. And so he just asked me the questions orally, and I got them correct. So that's called compensating mechanisms. Now, I mean, it's okay, but teaching kids early intervention, that's the game changer here. That's the one. And so you tell the parents, It's like you're going to bring happiness, as much happiness as any parent can bring to another human being, to a kid. But you tell the system it's less people in prison. Maybe they want more people in prison. I don't know. But if we could have a better society, when you get out of prison and you don't got no job, you're going to like look for somebody like, how am I going to do it? I'm going to hit your mother over the head. I'm going to hit your wife over the head. I'm going to hit you over the head. I'm going to hit your sister, your somebody, your brother. I'm going to hit them over the head and take their pocketbook if your brother has a pocketbook, and then
because that's a man purse.
It's a man purse. There's probably something in it worthwhile. But if I don't have a job and if I don't have training, that's how I'm gonna do stuff. So you can really help out a lot of people just by teaching kids how to read. I mean, it's just like
such a simple thing. It's such a simple thing.
And we can do it. And we can do it. And we can do it. The thing is, when we went to Waterbury, Connecticut, we followed the foundations program with the Wilsons, and you can see these teachers get it. They understand. They have reading facilitators, reading specialists that are kind of helping. You have a whole team of people working on your kid. It's not just teaching to the classroom, but it's teaching to your kid and making sure that Jake is where he needs to be, Harvey's where he needs to be. I mean, it's the pebble in the pond, and you don't know the difference you're making in somebody's life. Because we were talking about, hold on, Jake, we were talking about in the past, we're talking about, first grade, and you have X amount of days going on. I mean, that's really important. But looking at the damage that has been done to the self-esteem, to all kinds of stuff, to be able to make up that time and to catch up. That's why you need a Camp Spring Creek. That's why you need to have a place like Wilson's come in and train your teachers, so you can get all the teachers, into the program working, so we can help these kids. We don't have a lot of time. We have 188 days or something like that for them to learn what they're supposed to learn in first grade.
Wow. Well, I'm just writing a little post here for everyone to where they can get information. We're gonna have Harvey's team will be on this feed this week. So if you would like to bring Harvey's film Hopeville to your school, please comment in these comments. Please share this interview with all of your friends, because Harvey is going to change the entire game of how we talk about literacy. Not just talk, but how we do.
Game changer, baby. Game changer.
Game changers. And if you are open to or interested in signing your kids up to have their own mentor who also was like them, like the older version of themselves, to help build their own confidence and find self-advocacy skills and self-esteem from a social emotional level, please reach out to me or check out at superpower_mentorship, because we'll be happy to work with your kids and connect them to their own mentor. So really, Harvey, is there anything last that you'd like to leave our families here tonight? It's been so much fun having you on the show. So any final comments and any final questions from our parents?
Well, I think, I appreciate always talking with you, whether we're on or not on electronically. You're a stand-up good guy, and your parents raised a stand-up good guy, and you're giving it back to society, so all the more reason that we stick together, and there's a lot of ways that people do that. So this advocacy toolkit that we want to build, I mean, we can use help and guidance on what people need. I don't believe that going in and yelling at your school system is the most efficient way to do it. You can get frustrated, but I believe, someday this is going to be a 90-minute film, but there's going to be little YouTube things. And there's this is what I believe happened with dyslexia. people would go up and they would say to their teachers, they would go up to a board of education and say, hey, just watch this one thing. Just watch this. This is three minutes. This is 2 minutes. This is, and you see these things, and it's, you realize people just want to help, and they just want to do their job great is what they want to do. So any way we can do that, and that's where we're thinking the advocacy toolkit. You know, that's why we got a train ride, we get the boat ride, maybe we got a van. Oh, today's, but you know what today is, Jake? I forgot to tell you. Enough about you. It's our anniversary. Me and wifey. A year ago, we bought the van. We bought the RV. It's our anniversary. It's our first anniversary. Today. Wow, so anyway, so the whole idea is first you got to make a film. But in the making of film, you got to talk to everybody who's anybody. Then you got to figure out how to put it all into a thing that people can actually watch and digest, and it can make a difference. Then you go out onto the road. You know, hopefully we're gonna win some awards and do some festivals. You know, but it's really getting out there to going on tour and getting conversations going in towns that just might need a little bit of help. Just might need some guys that talk about love, music, and books. Just coming in and saying, look, we're all on the same side. We're just trying to teach kids how to read. Is there any way we can do things and improve things? Come on, we can improve. It's not about, it's fixing in us of what's the best possible way we can do things. And I think that's a really important way. Is this the best possible way we can do this for this town and for this community? And are enough of the children, and what is enough? 95%? Are enough of the children reading at grade level? And why aren't they? And if the answer is anything less, if the answer is anything less than getting 95% of everybody up to grade level, then we can do better. And that's our job.
Always do better. And that's what we're doing. And it takes a village to do that. Now, thank you again, everyone, for joining our show tonight. Again, I go live most Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We have an amazing roster of individuals in this space that I'm interviewing over the next I got it all out over the next 3 months now. So stay tuned for the roster being posted this week. Super excited. Harvey, thank you so much again for joining. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. If you can get anybody to send their stories in, we want to hear stories. It's all about raising the awareness and just speaking. If we know better, we can do better.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and have a great week.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, everybody. Y'all come back now. You hear?